Good morning, Broncos fans. If you're here in the Mountain Time Zone or somewhere around the world, welcome to thank you for joining. It's Friday morning here, and we are going to go live here in just a moment with the podcast. And sincerely, thank you for joining. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Thomas Hall, bringing you Legends of Mile High, which is a podcast that blends Denver Broncos current events with a historical perspective. And the ultimate goal is to always keep the storied history of the franchise alive, even in the minds of the most recent of fans. And as always, we will conclude the show with a Mile High legend, which is an interesting story from the Broncos of the past. And today I will unfold the tale of how a Broncos Ring of Famer was traded to the team because of a piece of equipment. So if that piques your curiosity, stay with me till the end of the show. And as always, please hit the like button and be sure to subscribe to the Mile High Huddle YouTube. And if you can't wait for Friday for my football takes, you can follow me on Twitter at Thomas Hall NFL or check out milehighhuddle.com for more in-depth analysis. And don't forget, if you missed it, last week we had Broncos Ring of Famer Carl Mecklenburg on the show. So go to Mile High Huddle YouTube. It's up there. So check it out. There was some great insight provided. He provided some incredible insight and stories. So be sure to check that out if you missed it last week. And as always, we have plenty of Mile High Huddle content on the site. And we also have some great podcasts. We have one just about every night and one just about every day now. So be sure to check that out. There's a lot of great perspectives on the show. So today, we're going to say good morning to Jeremy Sean. Good morning, Thomas and Scott. Exciting times in Broncos country. Yes, it is. It's very exciting. This is time to be very pumped for what's to come. And good morning, Michael Ronquillo. Brad D's checking in. Good morning, Thomas and fellow fans from beautiful Montana. All right. That is a state that I've never visited. I've been to almost every state in the United States, and I've never been to Montana. So I'm going to have to make it a point to go check it out. So one of the very few places I haven't been. So thank you for checking in from Montana. We're going to chat a little bit today about historical precedents, which is very fitting because there was another time in Broncos history where a new head coach came in, a new GM came in, and a new future Hall of Fame quarterback was traded for, and a new owner bought the team. So we are going to dive into that just as soon as we finish with some of the comments in the chat. So Michael Thomas Hall, what do you think about the new owner of Denver Broncos, Rob Walton and Penner Family Ownership Group? Well, we are going to dive into that, but I'm going to tell you from my perspective what I think about the new ownership. And I'm taking this from a perspective mostly from watching Pat Bowlen run the team. So the things I liked about Pat Bowlen and what made him so good as an owner was obviously he was a good leader. His goal was always to win a championship. That was the main goal. There was nothing else that was important to him besides winning a championship. And the third thing was he loved the team. He loved the team. It was a true love for him. He bought the team because he loved sports, and he really you could tell that he loved the Broncos. So from that perspective, it's really hard to match what Pat Bowlen was able to do. So I think it's interesting that people are really happy that we got someone with a lot of money coming in, which is great. You need money in this NFL business, obviously, in order to make sure that you're giving your team what it needs, and you're able to get the free agents and pay for them and sign those big contracts. But that doesn't mean you're going to be a good owner. And the only thing that I'm worried about really is if Walton and Penner's don't have the goal of winning a championship every year. If they're in it because they want to turn a profit or they want to just have it as a pet project or whatever, that worries me. That will not end well. But if they come in and they have the goal to win a championship, and they have good leadership in place to run an NFL team the way it needs to be run, then I'm not worried about it. So that's my take. I think the rumors with Peyton Manning maybe joining the ownership team is a good sign, meaning they want to bring some good football minds in. I'd also, if they really wanted to um, show goodwill, maybe hiring one of the Bolins of the family if they're willing to that as well, to keep that kind of nostalgia for the fans. And frankly, if they really wanted to win fans over right away, in my opinion, they should just say heck with the naming rights and just name the stadium Pat Bolin Stadium in my mind. But those are a few things they could do, but if their goal is to win a championship every year, then I'm in 100% because they have the money to do that, and they've got to bring in the football minds to make that happen. So that's my take on the ownership, and obviously we'll see how it unfolds. But uh, it's exciting times either way. We'll see. It's exciting times though. Uh, Tommy Simmers is checking Wild Montana Skies, my favorite John Denver song, and I'm from Shenandoah Valley. We are literally the topic of country roads. Yeah, it's interesting. I really do want to go see Montana, and I think it's probably beautiful up there. And I've been everywhere else almost, and there's a lot of beautiful country out there. Roy Osborne checking in. What would be Manning's role if he was to be a consultant? I don't know. That's a good question. Hopefully, it would have a lot to do with football operations type of stuff, what it takes to win. Obviously, Peyton Manning is a student of the game, and he understands what it takes to win with the preparation and digging in and looking at every possible angle you could. So my guess it's something like that. Hopefully, it's not just some sort of publicity thing that they want to bring, a big name in, and he doesn't really do anything. That would be a shame. I don't think Peyton Manning would be a part of that if that was the case. But I think, it's to understanding the football operations side maybe a little bit more. And also, I mean, if you have someone like that in your ownership, other players are going to respect that. I mean, Peyton Manning has a lot of respect across the league, so that's an attractive thing for people who are players who are in free agency to, be a part of what Peyton Manning has to offer. So it's hard to say what role they would give him, but hopefully hopefully it's something like that. So this obviously, as I said, is not the first time this major overhaul has happened, and really, I think these four positions that have changed recently in the last couple of years are some of the most important positions that you can have on a football team. So number one, the quarterback obviously is on the field a huge piece of the puzzle, especially when you trade for a future Hall of Famer and Russell Wilson. The general manager is a huge role because I mean that's the person that's going to bring you the talent and make the right decisions. And hopefully, I mean, from what we've seen from George Payton, that is definitely something that he's good at. I mean, we saw a great draft. We saw some good free agent pickups. We'll see about this draft and we'll see about these free agent pickups. But so far, it's looking very good. And then obviously, he made the big trade for Russell Wilson, which is, I think it's going to go down as one of the biggest steals in NFL history after Russell Wilson finally hangs up his cleats. I mean, he's got a lot left in the tank, and I do believe that Seattle's going to regret having traded him away. And I mean, that's good for the Broncos fans and great for the team. So that's another position that GM is huge. And then of course, head coach. We brought in a first time head coach. So there's a lot of there's a little bit of worry that he's not going to have what it takes because it's his first time, but man, he's sure showing a lot so far this year. Players seem to love him; they want to play for him. Garrett Bowles was just on the stadium talking about how he would do just about anything to win for him. So we've got a promising head coach, and then also a new owner, and this time a new owner with a lot of cash. So we don't have to worry about cash. And there's a lot of talk about let's build a stadium and everything like that. I really don't. At some point, maybe they will, but I'm not really worried about that right now. What I'm mostly worried about is how how the ownership's going to unfold and what they're going to be able to do and what their goal is. But like I said, this is not the first time that this has happened, and it's a good omen, really, for the Broncos because of what happened the last time that this happened. So in 1981, the Broncos brought in first time head coach Dan Reeves. And he had a lot of experience. He was a player, and he just had finished being the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. They'd gone to 4 straight playoffs and 2 Super Bowls in those 4 years. So he was coming in with a lot of good experience, winning culture, and Nathaniel Hackett is similar. I mean, he just came from the Green Bay Packers, who had been to 3 playoffs in a row. Obviously they weren't in the Super Bowl, but that's winning a winning culture there, and so that's something that you can look at and say, even if he's has some struggles first time as a head coach, it doesn't. He's still got that winning culture, and it feels like he has that winning culture when you listen to players talk and when you see the practices. He's really changed the attitude in Denver. Now, Dan Reeves wasn't just a good coach; he was a great leader, and that's what makes him what I think makes him a Hall of Famer. Is he was able to put together a great team around him. So he brought in some amazing coaches. One of them being Mike Shanahan, who ended up being the head coach and taking the Broncos to the first 2 Super Bowl wins. But if Nathaniel Hackett can do that, make sure that he has a solid team around him, and it doesn't have to be experienced guys; just has to be people who know what they're doing and can bring something to the team to really win. Then that's what's important. So I don't have a lot of worry about Nathaniel Hackett, and it's a good omen in my mind, because the next step in that was they ended up with a future Hall of Fame quarterback. They traded for John Elway, and if you have heard the Mile High Legend a couple weeks ago, I talk about how that unfolded. If you haven't, go check it out. It's an interesting story, and the Yankees were a part of that, which is incredible to have him come to the team. Just traded from the team after playing baseball for the Yankees for a little while. It was pretty interesting, but that was the big key, getting that future Hall of Famer. And then finally, they ended up with in '84. They ended with Pat Bowlen owning the team, saved the team from bankruptcy, and he brought in a new general manager. And 2 years later, they were in the Super Bowl, which was incredible to have that kind of success that soon after all these pieces came into place. And then, of course, they went to back-to-back Super Bowls, and they went to 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. So that was the last time that this happened. Obviously, Pat Bowlen owned the team for 3 decades. It was a winning culture. So now we have the same kind of thing. It's not the same order, obviously, but we brought in a new GM who traded for a future Hall of Fame quarterback. We got a new owner of the team, which is big, and of course a new first-time head coach who looks like he's bringing winning culture back to the organization. So I think we have a lot to look forward to this season. And Jeremy Sean, funny how we got Elway right before Pat bought the team, and now we have Russ right before Rob bought the team. Also, both have 3 first-letter names. I didn't. That's funny. I didn't put that 3-letter name together. That is amazing. But yeah, I mean, it's like I've said on this show before. What this is about is we want to dig into history a little bit to kind of predict what may happen in the future, because history repeats itself, and all these things are falling into place that are very similar. And of course, it doesn't mean that it is going to bring ultimate success. And thank you, Jeremy, for that comment. I appreciate it. It doesn't mean that we're going to have ultimate success watching the Broncos, but it is These are four very important pieces coming together and at the right time. And the team last year, I think, was held back for two reasons. The roster was pretty solid, had some good players, and many of them are, in their next year with a little more experience. I think they're held back by coaching and obviously quarterback play. And those two things are fixed. And for the future, we have a owner now that we can watch spend money on the team, hopefully, bringing in even more free agents. And I'm not a huge fan of spending money to try and win a championship because obviously people, we've seen NFL owners do that in the past, but at least gives them the opportunity to compete well in the market. So I think it's coming together. The only question mark really is Nathaniel Hackett. How good is he going to be? But right now, he's making the right moves. He's tailoring a offense for Russell Wilson. It seems first time in Russell Wilson's career that's going to happen. I mean, that's a mark of a good coach. Playing to your players' strengths, making sure you design a game plan and design an offense and design a defense that works to your players' strengths. And I don't know in depth what he's doing for the other position groups, but at least the buzz is for Russell Wilson, and we know that he is doing that. So I think that's a good sign, definitely. So um, like I said, there's a lot of promise ahead for the Broncos, and of course, when the players have bought in, and we've seen players buy in before. Obviously, players go up on the podium and they talk about um, how the new coach is great and all that, but this time it seems like they're very sincere and they're buying in and they really want to play their heart out for Nathaniel Hackett. And he's kind of a fun coach. Obviously, he is out there in practice, running around and grabbing the bags and playing, and that's fun. That's his personality. Some old timers will probably think you know that's not the way head coaches should be. They need to be stoic on the sidelines. But this is a different era. It's players are different than they used to be. They with free agency. You want to keep your players there. So I mean, if they're not super happy, they can jump ship as soon as their contract is up. So it's a different era. I don't really, I'm an old timer. I've been watching Broncos for a long time, watching football since. I mean, I remember my first early memories of football was 1980, 1981. But I think it's good for the game. So, and Michael Ronquillo has a great comment here. We have a chance to pay Russell Wilson with the new ownership of the Denver Broncos in place. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people have been giving their opinion about uh, how much it's going to be. It's a big dollar, close to 50 million a year on average, which is an incredible amount of money. And you know, there was rumors that the Broncos, under the current ownership trust, wasn't going to be able to pay that type of money, or at least if they did, they wouldn't have money for everybody else. But now they do. So I think that that's a big deal, and we'll see what Russell Wilson does. I think he's going to actually put up some MVP caliber numbers. You might see him in the MVP talk this year. So it's going to be well worth that money. And in 3 or 4 years, that's going to look cheap, most likely, because I mean, as we're seeing these big contracts go out, and then 3 or 4 years later, people are going, "Wow, this is a cheap deal for this player," because how fast everybody's pay is going up. Jeremy Sean, thank you for another comment. Better we can pay cash up front to lower his cap number. Absolutely. I mean, the cap number is The cap numbers can be easily massaged. I think that the Broncos have done an incredible job with the cap. They have been spending their money wisely, and then also not getting into cap hell. So they've done a great job with that. A lot of that has to do with like you said, the bonuses up front, doing it the right way, and the cap that later down the road is going to be less. So it's great. Alden Fish, thank you for joining. First time seeing you on the show. Enjoy your podcast, Thomas. Hopefully the Broncos have a great year. Well, absolutely. I do believe they will. My prediction for this team is a 11 wins. I think that's very attainable, even in a tough AFC West. They really, the biggest block to them getting to that record is their own division, in my opinion. They're going to have to split with two teams in their division and sweep one team to get there. And if they do that, they are going to get to 11 wins. DWI guys, all right. I was wondering if I was going to see you on the chat. I hadn't seen you yet, so thank you for joining. Great supporter of the show. I really appreciate you guys, the DWI guys, being here. Good afternoon, Thomas and Broncos country. Coming in from London, good afternoon to you. It's morning here, obviously. But thank you for joining the show. We're just talking about the promise that the new ownership, new head coach, new general manager, basically, and new future Hall of Fame quarterback brings. And it is a lot of promise. Now they have to perform on the field, obviously, but on paper, when you look at this team, they are contenders. And I know there have been a lot of people out there that are talking about how Russell Wilson is washed up, and that's BS is all I've got to say. Yes, he had a little bit of a down year last year compared to some of his other seasons. He missed 3 games for injury from the first time in his career, but he put up pretty good numbers if you look at it a per game basis. It was, one of his top 5-ish seasons if you look at it a per game basis. So I don't think he's lost much. He's got a great deep ball. I think that's going to be exciting to watch. He's very accurate and he's a winner. I mean, he is out there to win, and he's done everything that you could ask for from your starting quarterback to come in, instill a winning culture, hard work, and doing what's necessary to win a championship. And like I said earlier, I think the Seahawks are going to regret trading him away. I still am in shock, actually, when I think about it, how he slipped away, and how they just let him go. If he was 38, I could see it, but he brings a lot to this team. And like I said earlier, I think he is going to have MVP caliber numbers this year. Jeremy Sean's jumping in again. His down year with an injury was still great. Absolutely. That's what I was just talking about. I looked at his numbers. In fact, I've taken every quarterback since and Michael Ronquillo, thank you for that. Last year was his first losing season in the NFL. Yeah, and that had a lot to do with him being hurt, and the team around him was just not very good. It was a very, very poor roster. But I've do a lot of analytics in the NFL, and I took every qualifying quarterback since 1960, AFL and NFL, and I looked at their numbers on a per game basis, and I adjusted it for era. So, that's a simple thing to do, just looking at, how much better they are than the average or worse than they are the average for that era. And Russell Wilson's year last year was still ranked very high when you look at it based on all those other quarterbacks per era. John Paul, thank you for jumping in here, John. I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming in from Facebook with this chat. And even with injury, he came back like a beast. Absolutely. That's the thing that I looked at. He didn't come back. He wasn't tentative. He came back and he still wanted to win, even though the team wasn't going to go anywhere. It looked like they weren't even going to make it to the playoffs then. And he still came back and put in the work, tried to win every game. And that that to me is a sign of a good attitude, mental toughness, and he still put up good numbers afterwards. So uh, I think, I think it was a good sign. I just don't, people that are out there saying that he was washed up are just, they're just trying to say that because they want their team to win. They don't really look at that as I don't know if they actually even believe it when they say it. So we will see how good he is this year, but I'm expecting a great year. And he's been sacked almost over 40 times on average for his career per season. I mean, if the Broncos can just keep him upright for half of that, it's going to be one of his. It's going to be great on his body and mind and on his numbers as well. Plus, he has some great weapons. DWI guys, thank you for the super chat here. New owner has to love having a proven GM in place for 4 more years, as with the new and exciting head coach. Last but not least, the prospect of Wilson for 5+ years and a great roster. Great investment, but time to produce on the field. Thank you for that, and I appreciate you being a supporter of the show. You're here on every show, and you're definitely in the Mile High Huddle or stars. You're always on the other shows, so thank you for being a great supporter. And I agree. All this stuff that I'm talking about here, everything, the great omen, repeating itself, all these projected numbers and thinking about the big dollars that the owner can bring, it doesn't mean anything if they can't produce on the field. And I think they will. There's going to be some growing pains for everybody. Ownership, Nathaniel Hackett, I mean, a GM.
All right, sorry to jump in here real quick, but Thomas, your microphone has gone absolutely AWOL and berserk. So it's me, Scott Kennedy, here behind the background, and the DWI guys talking about the new owner and a proven GM and all of the assets that were in place. You're absolutely right. Makes this such a great move and great timing for a great franchise. We've talked about it before, having a premier franchise like the Denver Broncos, where they're able to bounce back. They're like a Super Bowl. They're not like a flat basketball where you're the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Atlanta Falcons. You're coming back and it's going to take a little while. When they bounce back, they're going to come back like a Super Bowl. So I'm going to bring Thomas back in here. I wasn't sure who that was, if it was me or if it was him. But once I muted and unmuted the Facebook feeds that it was on that side of things, I decided to jump in here and say hello. And since I'm in my casual attire, I will take this time to say, hey, go Chelsea. Happy Friday, everybody. Here's Thomas.
I hope you can hear me again. Am I back on? Okay, great. I don't know what happened. I apologize for the technical difficulties, and I'm sure whatever I was saying was very profound, and sorry that you missed it. I don't know how long I was talking before I realized that voice wasn't on there, but I'll just say one more time in case I cut out before. Thank you to the DWI guys for the comment, and thank you for the star super chat. I appreciate it. Great supporter of the show. And again, I'm very sorry that I cut out there. I don't know what happened. That's unfortunately that happens when it comes to technology. And oh well, we'll keep going. So, but what I'll say is, I guess it's a good time to actually start wrapping up the show. It's coming along that time. And so I'm going to wind it down as usual. But first, I'll just let you know what's coming up next week for the
Mile High legend, and I'm sure many of you have heard at least some of this story, but there's an important fact that nobody talks about that was really the culprit in the saga of Elvis Dumervil and the fax machine. So tune in next week to learn about how that important detail could have kept Elvis in Denver. Great pass rusher. Would have liked to seen him retire in Denver, but didn't happen. So tune in next week to find out why that actually happened. It wasn't just because of the fax machine. And now I'm going to end the show with today's Mile High legend. So Haven Moses is one of the greatest receivers in Denver Broncos history. He was key to the Broncos' first winning season and turned around struggling franchise. And he also was a major factor in getting the Broncos to their first Super Bowl in 1977. And Moses' career with the Orange and Blue only happened because of a disagreement over a piece of equipment. His career actually started with the Buffalo Bills in 1968. He was a gifted receiver for that club, averaging over 18 yards per reception in 5 seasons, which is tied for a franchise best with Hall of Famer James Lofton. And he also earned a Pro Bowl invitation while with the team. But during the season in 1972, he was suddenly shipped to the Mile High City. And in Denver, he flourished, even with sometimes less than stellar quarterback play. And when he retired, he was second to only Lionel Taylor in career receiving totals for the Broncos. And he still leads the team in yards per reception. And there have been many great ones to line up on the outside for the Broncos. So for Haven Moses to continue to hold that record more than 4 decades after he retired, that's an incredible feat. He was one of the best deep threats in history. And he also earned his second trip to the Pro Bowl in 1973 while playing for the Broncos. And he finished his career with 448 receptions and more than 8,000 yards in a run-dominated league. And so it's strange to think that the Bills would trade away such a valuable player. But after the Bills head coach Jack Kemp retired, Lou Saban took the helm for his second stint with the team. And the relationship between Lou Saban and Haven Moses quickly soured for one of the most puzzling of reasons. But at the same time, the Broncos had an issue with their own receiver, Dwight Harrison. Harrison got into an argument with defensive lineman and bad boy Lyle Alzado, and he got so angry that he went to his car and returned to the locker room with a gun. Although no harm ensued with the firearm, it caused significant amount of concern, as one would expect. The Broncos needed to do something with the receiver, so they used him in a trade for Haven Moses. And while the squabble that occurred between Haven Moses and Lou Saban pales in comparison to the incident of Dwight Harrison, it is a far more absurd reason to trade away a star player. Now, very few pictures of Moses in his early career are available, but if there were, people would see that he preferred wearing a helmet with a single bar face mask. Lou Saban wanted him to wear a 2-bar face mask. Haven Moses refused, so when Lou Saban took it a step further and ordered the equipment manager to change his face mask anyway, it boiled into a full-blown dispute. And that was the beginning of the end of Haven Moses in the city of good neighbors. He was traded to Denver shortly after that disagreement. Now, the dispute over an additional bar on a face mask was enough for the Bills to trade away their 9th overall pick in his prime. Now, Moses went on to be one of the most prolific receivers in Broncos history and is enshrined in the Broncos Ring of Fame. And it was all caused by a minor adjustment to a piece of equipment. And that is your Mile High legend. Thank you for joining, and have a great day, Broncos fans.